Welcome back to Sun, Sand, and Salt. I'm Josh Tummy with David Haber, welcoming Jimmy Tate to the show. Jimmy, it's great to see you.
Nice to see you.
And welcome. We're really excited to have a conversation with you about all things real estate in South Florida and beyond. And I think David has a couple of surprises up his short Patagonian sleeves for you. But I'm going to kick off right away. And Jimmy, given the breadth of your development experience and the number of years you've been in this marketplace, looking at commercial, looking at multifamily, looking at condominium, in the way you and your firm look at development, how do you look at diversification of risk? I mean, there's obviously so many directions to head in a market as lively as we have here in South Florida. How does your firm and how do you look at that diversification?
South Florida is really an anomaly for most other markets dealing with real estate because of our growth and our consistent growth through the years. I think most sectors here don't have major corrections unless there is a worldwide economic catastrophe or, as we had in
2008.
Or 2008, or if you have COVID, which just hits all markets and you can't overthink those. You just have to just go with the flow. But in South Florida, you have one risk element. If you're developing in South Florida, you have the South Florida risk, right? So you have all your eggs in one basket.
What you're talking about, the hurricane risk, I presume?
Hurricane,
water rising.
You have rising water, resiliency concerns, sustainability, concerns that you have to now address and deal with all the architectural and development plans being approved, the added cost. You talk about South Florida, between your insurance, your interest rates, cost of construction.
Costs of construction have gone way up, right, Jimmy?
Yeah, way up to the point where it's very difficult to underwrite. We actually have a 360-unit development in North Miami that we were fortunate enough to receive a $15.5 million grant for infrastructure and permit fees, impact fees, et cetera, because they wanted us to add a workforce housing component because obviously there's a huge workforce housing shortfall in South Florida.
Can you talk about that for, not all of our listeners are real estate people. Talk about what workforce housing is so that they have an idea.
Well, workforce housing is exactly what the definition states. It's affordable housing for the workforce. And there's all different layers based upon income levels. So you have the higher end, which is it's based upon the average rate that someone earns. And then they go all the way down to subsidized housing, where the government actually has programs that help subsidize your payment.
And we talked about the subsidized and that kind of housing for lower income people with Mayor Daniela Levine Cava. What you're talking about for workforce housing is more of people, let's say they're a plumber or they're an air conditioning person and they make $50,000 a year. How are they going to live? How are they going to sustain? That's what you call workforce housing.
Yes. And believe it or not, they make more. It's based upon the average of the area. But the cost to live in South Florida is so high because of the cause and effect of actually COVID. We had a huge number of people moving to Florida based upon what we consider very good governance by our governor. And a lot of people were flying and leaving and migrating down from New York, New Jersey, Chicago,
Massachusetts, all over the Northeast.
Right, and California. So typically over the last 20 years, if you look at Florida, we've always had a net sum gain of about 200,000 after attrition. After COVID, it got up to 300,000 plus. In fact, they don't even have the actual numbers. It happened so fast. And the census, they're going back on because they recognize there's more people throughout the state of Florida than they actually originally thought.
Jimmy, given the backdrop of some of that macroeconomic view that you were talking about, have you had to restructure the way you look at deals entirely? I mean, is there now new strategies that you all are sourcing to make it affordable to continue to develop?
Unfortunately, you have your capital stacks. Where do you get your money from? You get it from private investors who just want a certain preferential return and then equity. You have your mezzanine loans, which are just a higher interest rate. You have your normal bank lending for construction finance. And then there's just different types of pref equities and different types of fund equities and debt funds. But at the end of the day, it's still the same basic groups. The problem we're seeing right now, and we've actually have 2 projects that we're going to try to bring to market this summer because we noticed that interest rates have gone down, believe it or not. I don't know for how long. Our quotes coming in for this year, 2025, are down about 20 to 25% on average for commercial.
That's fantastic. That means deals will get done as compared to deals being on hold, because would you agree deals have been on hold for the last year and a half?
Yeah, to my point, we had this 360-unit development in North Miami tabled for over a year.
Yeah, it's been in the pipeline, but it couldn't go because you couldn't make it work.
And we were just one of 500 I'm aware of.
Right.
Yeah, a lot of deals tabled.
And just so that everybody knows, your partners are your brother, who I know very well, Kenny Tate and Tate Development, and of course our good friend Sergio Rock, who you have known forever, right?
Yep, since high school.
Yeah.
Great guy, great family, and
he hates his name being mentioned here, but maybe he'll listen.
Proud to be associated with the Rock family and their close family friends, and one of the best partners you could ever ask for. I never really had a partner until Sergio.
Well, you had Kenny.
Kenny's a family member and a brother, and those have, family have their own dynamics. But Kenny and I have such a special relationship, and probably because of the age difference, we're 11 years different. So there was a lot that I looked up to him. There wasn't that brotherly competition. A lot of things he respected that I was able to do that he wasn't able to do. So it was really a perfect partnership for the two of us.
Well, I also think that Sergio's a great partner for both of you. And I'm lucky enough that Haber Law represents all 3 of you. And more importantly, I'm friends with all 3 of you. And I really appreciate that friendship. I do want to throw that out there to Sergio, Kenny, and of course to yourself.
Well, we love you too, David.
Thank you.
This is just all
love fest.
All love right now. Jimmy, I want to go back to maybe using the North Miami development as a reference point. How do you see PPP or public-private partnerships playing into the space right now? I mean, obviously there's a lot going on, to make that a little more accessible or even necessary given the financial circumstances.
I'm a big proponent of PPP, right? So P3s, in my opinion, work great. The problem is there's so much negative connotation that comes with it. People don't trust it. Politicians don't understand it, and they don't understand the benefit of it. But if you really think about it, our Bahiamar development, which is a multi-billion-dollar development, by definition is a P3. The city's our partner.
Right.
North Miami, by definition, it's a P3. I'm doing it on city property that gave us a very, very good deal on the land with a long-term lease with the ability to buy. They gave us grant money to help us afford the development, and in return, we're giving them workforce housing for the city needs.
Because they can't. Cities should not be in the business of building developments. They should be in the business of public-private partnerships. And we saw that with the mayor of Aventura.
Right, with Howard Weinberg doing the related group deal and the hero housing program that he's putting together.
It's fantastic ideas, and yours is a good idea. And
we just had one
P3,
we just had one in North Miami. The city needed the rec center from the Johnson and Whale. They didn't have it in the budget. They couldn't afford it. The vice mayor at the time called me up and wanted my help to help him get in the driver's seat to get the transaction, because it was all those.
Or they would have lost the property and wouldn't have been able to do a rec center.
And I said to, at the time, Scott Galvin, the commissioner, I said, Scott, how bad do you really want this? He goes, this will be my legacy. I would really like to get this for the city. And it was probably a $40, $50 million asset that PMG was willing to sell off as part of the overall package, because it was really the last piece for $11 million. So I went to the city. I said, I'll tell you what, we'll buy it. We'll lease it to you. We'll give you a 10-year lease. You can, after the 3rd year, you can buy it at our cost, plus our closing costs, et cetera. Pay us 10% interest or 11%, whatever the dollar. It wasn't a game changer transaction for me, but I felt it was the right thing to do for the city that my home office was in, because we believe in giving back to the communities we develop in. It was an opportunity for the city to get something they would never be able to afford. And meanwhile, because it had the connotation of a P3, all the gadflies were out,
right,
in large numbers.
Yeah,
there's something nefarious going on. You shouldn't be doing this. Right. The city's being ripped off. And I'm like, guys, this is an altruistic move. If you don't want to do it, don't do it. I don't care. I'm trying to help you guys out. But in one of my favorite movies, I'm not going to say the name of it, but you can't fix stupid. You just can't.
Right.
Yeah. And let me ask you a question about that. How do you
About fixing stupid?
No, you can't
It's
fix
a long
stupid,
road, David.
But how do you galvanize public support for a P3 project? Do you do it through education? How do you go about taking the naysayers, like Bahia Mar? The property was run down for the last 30 years. You come in and you want to help the city make more money, provide beautiful public park green space, provide amenities, provide a beautiful hotel. But if you're a developer, there's got to be something in it for you as well. And it's almost like people who are gadflies against it are basically saying, you're not entitled to make any money. And that just doesn't work.
And it's the same people that complain that their taxes are too high.
Right.
Right.
So they just don't understand how business works. And the reality is, getting back to the original question, what do I think about P3s? I think they're phenomenal. I think education, as you said, is the way to go, or open communication, town hall meetings.
Transparency.
Transparency, yes. But the problem is people that don't want to be educated are not going to be educated. It's that simple.
So what you're telling me as well, without saying it directly, is you need strong leadership in government that's willing to say, I'm going to do the right thing, even if people criticize it, because I know in the long run, this is a good decision for the city.
That's why term limits are important, because the politics get out of it and people are there for the right reason to do the right things within that window.
And City of Miami, as you both probably know, is looking at the term limit issue. I know Commissioner Pardo has been pushing that, and I think
I've always been a proponent of term limits in Congress with senators. I think people who sit in government for 30 or 40 years not only get stale, but they're more interested in getting reelected than they are in doing something within the term that they have.
So right now, the governor is actually proposing legislation to force term limits. So
On cities and counties?
Yes. The problem is you can't just make a global response. And even though the governor's intent is right, think about Golden Beach, right? Our friend Glenn Singer. He's now on his 11th term. Nobody wants to do that job. Right? And
so what do you do if nobody wants to?
That's my point.
It's all like condo boards, David, right? I mean, getting people to want to serve.
Exactly. So here you go. You have a guy who has the time, has the business acumen, has the experience, has done an amazing job. The community wants him. But if the governor puts forth this global,
then it's across the board.
Right. It's across the board. And now he can't, by law, run again.
So what you're saying, it has to be city and county by city and county in your mind. I know City of Miami Beach has 10-year term limits. So what you're saying is it depends where you are.
I think smaller cities should not have to follow that, because most smaller cities are not going to find someone that runs. To your point, you just mentioned condos. The problem with condo boards in the past have been people were elected because of popularity, not because of their ability.
Yeah, and why are they popular? Because they don't raise maintenance fees. And of course, when you don't raise maintenance fees,
drag the condo into bankruptcy.
Well, what happens is 30 years later, you have $15 to $50 million worth of work that needs to be done because everybody was so popular and got reelected by saying, and this was, I remember sitting through meetings and sitting through elections where people said, I haven't raised fees in 7 years.
Right. And the problem is with no new taxes in 88.
And the problem is they also don't balance a budget. So they run deficit budgets, right? They approve a deficit budget and then I don't know how they carry it.
Or they proportionally decreased reserve funding, which is exactly what we saw until there was just a waiver of reserve, and then nobody was doing any capital reserving, and then we wound up with issues like Surfside.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about the Bahia Mar project?
Yeah, I was gonna pivot to that because it's gotten such incredible attention, Jimmy, and it's such a prime example of redevelopment at the highest level. Would love to hear the genesis.
I will tell you, it is hands down the most exciting development, transformational development, redevelopment effort my family's ever been involved with. It's taken us 11 years to get the entitlements. Our entitlements have changed.
That's it?
Three times. Spent almost $10 million, which is kind of funny. When we bought the property from Blackstone, and we were going through the paperwork before we did the closing and during our due diligence, I looked at their ledgers and I said to my brother, I go, you're not going to believe this. He goes, what? I go, they spent $10 million on their entitlements and they walked away. I said, they gave us a blueprint. This is going to be easy.
So you thought.
So I thought. Again, it was a process. It was a labor of love. The beauty for us.
By the way, I can say this through friendship, through being an investor, through knowing Jimmy. If Jimmy didn't have the perseverance he has, there's no way this project gets done. I love Sergio. I love Kenny, but it's Jimmy's stick-to-itiveness and stubbornness to see it through and make it a legacy project for the family and for the community that got this thing done. And without Jimmy, not a chance it gets done.
Oh, thank you, David. I will tell you, my wife said when it was finally done, she says, you're not like, I said, Jenny, I left it all on the table. Like I don't have energy to be excited.
Shout out to Jimmy Tate, the power behind the throne.
Right.
But I said to her, but if you really want to know the best part of this, and this is going to be a little sappy, but I meant it. My kids got to see me persevere after putting so much time and effort into something. Because they were always like, I would hear them say to my wife, why is he doing this? Like, why is he putting this time in? And they saw me just stick with it and then accomplish the success. And to me, having them witness that was a life lesson that I think they'll carry with them their whole life, because I saw how proud of them they was, and they recognized how much time and effort we put into accomplishing this feat. And the feat is only the right to develop. Now all the heavy lifting comes.
Right. I was going to say now the hard part.
And let me ask you a question. What is the contemplated time frame to finish out this development? Is it 5 years, 10 years?
So look, everything's.
I mean, it's a huge project.
It's a market-driven question. So we've opened our sales center, and I will say, shout out to the Related Group. They opened one of the best-in-class sales centers anywhere in the United States, if not the world. And they brought in a international designer by the name of Tara Bernard out of London, who just knocked it out of the ballpark. And we had our grand opening 2 or 3 weeks ago. And it's
my invitation got lost in the mail.
And no, it didn't. You just don't read your emails. but
probably
points for Jimmy.
We literally had to close the gates. We had over 300 people show up, and we just couldn't handle the crowds. And it's been nonstop. The energy, the excitement, high velocity.
Can you talk about the project in terms of general summary of,
sure,
hotel, who's going to be doing the hotel, who's building it, how much green space there is?
So I'll tell you, it's a very interesting property. So the Bahia Mar, for anyone that's just listening, is not aware of it or they know the name, it's a 40-acre city-owned piece of property on the Barry Island in Fort Lauderdale. It's one of the most iconic, premier pieces of property, to quote George Perez, anywhere in the world. Think about it. You got 2,000 linear feet of ocean on your east side, and you're completely surrounded by water on the west side.
That's the intercoastal.
With one of the most well-recognized mega yacht and giga yacht marinas in the world. As a matter of fact, we're the home to the Fort Lauderdale International Boat Show, which is the largest in-water yacht show in the world, bigger than Monaco. We have over 1,500 yachts in the water. So it's a pretty amazing piece of property. We recognized we had a responsibility to the community and the commission, not just ourselves as developer, to do something that was going to have a benefit to the community, a benefit to the businesses, a benefit to the marine industry, a benefit to the environmentalists for the turtle nestlings and, dealing with resiliency and sustainability. So every plan we did from the first set of drawings for entitlements, which was with Nichols Broche and then with Kobe Carp and now with Architectonica, we always had to put into our plans resiliency, sustainability, parks, open space, boardwalks. So this property has a half-mile, 20 to 25-foot wide boardwalk, 1/2 mile around the entire marina, loaded with landscaping on the backside so people could ride their bikes, walk, jog, sit down, read a book. It's beautiful. We're raising up the property approximately 3 feet, which means we're raising up all the seed walls. So we're dealing with
sustainability.
we wanted to leave enough space for the boat show because there were a lot of variables involved in this that we had to deal with. We had to deal with the neighbors. We had to deal with the boat show lease. We had to deal with the community. We had to deal with the marina. So we wanted to give the boat show a best-in-class facility so they can have an easy go at it every time they put together the show. If you really want to see something unbelievable, they put together this whole show in 2 weeks.
Yeah, well, it takes time to set it up and then break it down. And I've been to the boat show. It's massive.
It's
Huge.
massive.
Huge.
Talk about professional organization. Informer just does a lights out job at this. So they basically took over our whole property. So we carved out 7.2 acres and gave them all waterfront contiguous property, which is beautiful. The rest of the year, it's parks.
Nice.
And a little bit, street level parking. So street level parking is for the community. The parks are for the people that live there in the community. The boardwalks for the community and the people that live there. And then what we did, we had in the central core of the property, we built a podium. And then on top of the podium are the 5 towers. One tower is a hotel with a hotel condo component. And then the other 4 towers are residential.
Pure condo.
Pure condo.
How high are the towers going to be?
We wanted some undulation on the roof. So we have 300 feet on the hotel tower, and we have about 270 to 280 feet on the other towers. To give you the size and magnitude of the property, we have 1,165,000 square feet of saleable condo space.
That's amazing.
And we estimate
That's a lot of space.
We estimate our sellout will be about $3,000 a square foot on average, maybe more.
And the city gets a piece of the money not only on the retail leasing, but they get a piece of the sales of the condos, don't they?
Yes, and they also get something on resale. So as you said, on the transfer of the asset. So but we did this for 2 reasons. Number one, we made the city our partner. Talk about P3. So the city was always getting a percentage of our rent from the hotel rooms, rent from the marina, rent from the boat show.
Of the existing.
We kept the commercial component of the city lease the same, but we made them the partner in the sale of the condos. And the reason being was, if it was a city lease, we wanted the ability to sell air rights so that someone can buy fee simple title instead of buying something with a ground lease and 100 years goes away. And that was a big lift. It was a big lift for the city. It was a big lift.
It took courage for the commission to do it.
It did, but it made economic sense.
They're going to get more money.
Their own independent appraiser and real estate experts told the city that they believe over the next 100 years, the city will earn well over $1 billion from this transaction. It's a lot of money.
It's hard to vote that down. And the city needs money. And to give it a kicker, we're giving them 5% of our gross sales. So if we have let's say $3 billion in gross sales, that's $150 million the city's going to make.
And that's right off the bat.
That's right off the bat.
Not over the 100 years.
Right.
And they could never get that on the existing property.
No.
And that stands apart from any of the other economic benefits that it's going to see over the course of time.
And then there's the benefits, right. And people spending money.
And I'll tell you, so the best part was we wanted to give back to the community, and we wanted to do something that was different than any other developer. And we're trying to encourage other developers to follow suit because we think it's really important that developers just don't take from communities, but they give back. So we started a trust fund. So a portion of every sale is going to a trust fund for 5 different trusts. And based upon our assumptions, if they're right, the initial funding will be about $6 to $6.5 million. And one fund is for affordable, workforce housing, affordable housing.
Wow.
Another is for environmental on the beach and to help the turtles and help environmentalists with the beach, sustainability, resiliency. Another one's for homelessness. Another one is for STEM programming on the west side of town. So we really wanted to create programs that they were hands-off. We put them in a trust fund. So they're like protected silos that will really go to the root causes that we think the city needs.
And in your mind, that's the kind of not only responsible development, but that's the give back under P3 that you can't get if it's just a private development.
Well, I think the give back under P3 is the 100 to 150 million of cash plus the rent they're going to
Let's not forget the $1 billion they're going to make.
It's like to reference one of my favorite movies. This is an offer they couldn't refuse. So it's like, what do you mean to say? You're going to say no to that? I guess, Jimmy, I want to ask a more sort of leading question that way, which is why, and say it sounds great. I think the public orientation towards development and developers is that it's take. Why? I mean, how, if you were to answer that question quickly for, the man on the street, why all that effort in the give back? I mean, it certainly sounds great.
First of all, I think it's systemic in my family. My father, Stanley G. Tate, taught us from a very young age, you need to give back to the community. He was the founder of original fundraiser of the Florida Prepaid College Program.
Yeah, shout out to the Tate family. I will say that I represented Stanley for many years before I even met Jimmy and Kenny, and I can tell you that every one of the 50 states prepaid college tuition programs were all 49 of the others were formed based upon the original in Florida that Stanley not only came up with the idea, but he funded the original program himself out of his own pocket. And just a great man who's sitting up in heaven. And I can tell you, he's looking down on Jimmy and Kenny, very proud of what they were able to accomplish, not just in Bahia Mar, but in every business that they're in.
But back to the why.
Right. So I think that had a lot to do with it. And it was very interesting. My father used to tell me as a child, and I said, Dad, you give so much, like, why? And he goes, because it makes me feel good. And I never understood. I'm like, what do you mean it makes you feel? I got to tell you, I get such a fulfillment for giving back. It's hard to explain, but the more I give, the better I feel. And coincidentally, the more I give, the more I just seem to make.
I can tell you that I
call that karma.
Yeah, it is. But I don't give for that reason. It's just fun. My
not
wife's
with
like,
expectation.
Right.
I know that not everybody believes in God, but in my mind, and I know in your mind, God blesses us the more we give away our time, our effort, our money. The more we volunteer, the more God recognizes it. And I very much feel that. Right. And of course, as you and I both believe in the faith of Judaism, there's Tikkun Olam, for those that know what that means, which is making the world a better place.
Yeah. And it's just a fulfillment. So that's the answer why. And, it's funny. I gave a speech or a symposium at United Way, and they asked me what was my reasoning and why. And I related it back to a book when I was a kid, Alicia Silverstein, The Giving Tree. The Giving Tree, sure. And if you think about it, it was such it's a child's book, but it has such a profound message, because at the end of the day, if you just take, there's nothing left for anybody.
I will admit on air that if I read that book page to page, it still makes me weepy. So if you haven't seen The Giving Tree,
before you get weepy, can I do a little rapid fire?
But hold on, I just want to say one thing. So the most exciting part about the Bahia Mar, because I didn't get to finish this, is that we were able to secure one of the most well-recognized 5 to 6 star luxury brands in the world, the St. Regis. And
it's going to be a great hotel.
And the reason I believe we're going to be successful is what's going to differentiate us from every other development in the area is that they have a white glove service. It's a 5-star luxury branded resort hotel with a 5-star luxury branded resort hotel condo. They call it a hotel residence, and a 5-star luxury branded residential component. They're going to be managing everything. So the people that buy there have an expectation of a best-in-class, a whole nother level of luxury and accoutrements around the property. They know when they buy that this has the St. Regis stamp of approval.
Right.
They know the landscaping is going to be perfectly manicured. They know the flowers are going to be in perfect bloom. They know that it's going to be safe. Its value is going to be, remain and improve and increase. So it gives buyers in a difficult market a comfort level. And so we were really thrilled to be able to get a brand of that ilk to want to come to our property. And the funny part was I called wondering, are they going to do this, not going to do this? It was like a 30-second yes.
Right.
Wow.
That's right. Well, let's talk about those buyers for a second, because I think everyone's always interested to hear who's buying, why they're buying. I mean, sort of the sub-market shifts within our marketplace with as much immigration into South Florida as there is. Who are you seeing out of the gate are really the interested parties? Who's been first in line?
Are they Europeans? Are they South Americans? Are they people from the local area?
I will tell you, it's exactly who I predicted it would be, the demographic we targeted for, local market.
Wow.
It's people selling their homes and wanting to stay in the area and wanting to keep that level of luxury. Boaters who have a yacht that was behind their home, but now they want it behind their new home. And then second to that will be Mexico, New York, New Jersey, Toronto, Chicago, Newport, California.
Right.
Across the board.
Right.
Can I ask you a question in terms of pricing? I know you said it's going to be about $3,000 a square foot. You know, London is considered the most expensive place in the world. Tokyo is another one of the most expensive places in the world to live. Do you see South Florida getting to $5,000 or $6,000 a square foot?
Well, we're at $5,000 on Fisher Island right now. I mean, 6 Fisher Island is trading at $5,000.
See it just continuing over time?
So at the high end market, there probably is no cap, right? There's just so much money, because I was in Baker's Bay yesterday and I was shocked because I'm just
Baker's Bay is in the Bahamas.
Right. And I just saw home after home I probably saw 35 homes under construction all on the ocean. And I was talking with somebody there and I said, what does it cost to build down here?
A lot.
$2,000 a square foot to build.
To build it, right.
So every one of these homes had to be 18 to 20, $25 million, every one of them. And there was no shortage.
Remember when we used to price building homes at like $200 a foot? Remember those days?
Yeah. Yeah, those days are long gone.
All right, now can I rapid fire, please?
He is desperate for this rapid. If we don't let him get this out, this is just going to be a distraction from this point on.
I want to see Haber cry, so let's not do the rapid
You
fire.
can actually see a little glassing in the eyes right now. If it's part of it's the attention deficit, so it's like if he doesn't hold on to it. So we're going to let him do that. Then we're going to go to a break and come back with some more questions for Jimmy. So David, the floor is yours. It's rapid fire time.
Ginger or Marianne from Gilligan's Island?
Oh, definitely Marianne.
Okay. Coke or Pepsi?
Coke.
White golf balls or yellow?
Yellow.
Let me see. I got a couple more.
See, this is what happens.
It's supposed to be rapid fire, right?
Rapid fire, but we're going to be spinning our wheels here. Go ahead.
White tennis shoes or black tennis shoes to go out with a fancy suit?
Both.
Ooh.
One on each foot, or is it?
Well, right now I'm wearing black, and yesterday I was wearing white. So there you go.
Italian food or Japanese food?
Ooh, that's a good one. I like
That's a good one. I can't say both again. I would say Italian.
Yeah. By the way, shout out to the Italian restaurant across from where you live in Keystone. We had a great meal there a couple of weeks ago.
Casa Mia. I was there last night.
Casa Mia. Shout out to the owner. Great meal.
Yeah.
And I got one more. Favorite color?
Green.
I was going to say mine is blue, but you know I can understand a developer.
We'll leave that right where it is. Chippy, thanks so much. We'll be back with you in just a moment. Josh Tomey, David Haber here on Sunset and Sold. Join us on all your favorite social media platforms and streaming services. We'll be right back.